You are listening to Prophet Pearls with Keith Johnson, exploring biblical prophecy for yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Welcome to the final episode of our year-long Prophet Pearls series. This is your host, Keith Johnson, going solo. And I have to be honest and say I was not sure how, when, where, or even if this final episode would be recorded. After Nehemiah and I finished recording over 30 episodes together in Jerusalem, this final episode was left hanging in the balance, waiting for when or if we would complete it. As it worked out, Nehemiah decided that he wanted to launch something new. And to be honest, I think he was getting weary of dealing with an old guy like me. Did you hear me coughing and complaining about being sick during those recordings? I've actually heard that he has announced that the first episode of his new podcast also doubles as the last unofficial episode of Prophet Pearls, on the portion of Vezot Haberachah. I sure am glad he said unofficial, because I have been waiting for how, or more importantly, if Maestro, God, would complete the final movement of this beautiful symphony called Prophet Pearls. Well, you folks, on the first day of Sukkot, which also happened to be my birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Hey, no thanks. Once I reached this age, I decided no more singing. It makes me nervous. Now back to what I was saying. On the first day of Sukkot, Feast of Booths, which happened to be my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey, shut that off. Who is editing this anyway? I said no singing now that I've reached this age. Anyway, on that day, something happened. Did you know that this year in Israel during Sukkot, the entire Torah is read in public? It only happens once every 7 years, according to Scripture. I figured it was a good time to unroll and read some of my own Torah scroll. Man, oh man, I love that Torah scroll. As I was reading, it's when I realized how much I loved sharing, both through Prophet Pearls and Torah Pearls, the Word of God. Do you realize we have recorded over 100 episodes that cover almost the entire Torah and Prophet portions, except one? Wow. Well, now it seems that I'm on my own, which means I can invite you to be my partner in discovering some of these pearls with me. Why not? It's how I love to approach Scripture, by taking back and forth and talking, and discussing, and you say a little something, I say a little bit. And of course, in the case of when the Prophet Pearls, Nehemiah would say a lot and I'd say a little bit. But actually, it was really a powerful experience because what we would do is we'd go back and forth and we would be reading and discovering really right at the moment. So let's try this out. Now, are you willing to try it out? If not, I'm going to do it anyway. Hey, listen, I committed to completing this series. It just took this old guy a little longer than expected. But I think, personally, we are right on time. So here's what we will do to proceed for this final prophet portion, Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. Imagine you're sitting here with me with your Bible open, and we'll search together. So instead of me preparing a presentation that may never be heard, let's look at the passage together and see what we can find. This way, I can ask you to do some of the reading while I do some of the research. So without further ado, let's do this. Now, by the way, let me just say something, folks. I don't have the high-tech microphone that Nehemiah has. He has got the best. I'm telling you, this guy's got microphones and cameras. I mean, he's high-tech. Things must be going well for him, I'll be honest with you. What I'm sitting here with is my little iPad. I'm by myself. I got no one with me. It's a little lonely, but to be honest with you, I have the Word of God with me, and you're listening, however many of you that are out there. So we're going to try to do our best. We're going to ask our editor. He's the best. I think this guy's amazing. I'm going to ask him to somehow fix the sound so it could sound a little more professional, because as I mentioned, I'm kind of sitting here with the basics. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up this passage. Now, here's what I've got here. I've got my computer. I've got my Bibles. I've got my little iPad. And now let's move on. We're going to take a glance at this portion. Now, here's what I look at in Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. In fact, you know what? Before we read it, let me do it this way. Joshua 1 through 18. For me, when I first read this verse, it was as if I was taken back in time to the meeting with Yehovah and Yehoshua. Now, when I say Yehoshua, I mean Joshua. Yehoshua is the original name he would have been given, and then there's the English name. It's Joshua. So for me, when I read that, I get kind of excited because I open up my other Bible. I've got my English Bible and my Hebrew Bible, and I see that name and I get kind of excited because I'm brought back to something that really is pretty amazing. So before we get to the portion, let's do this. Because you do realize that the English name Joshua is actually a translation of the Hebrew name Yehoshua, which means, wait for it, Yehovah saves. This name was given to a man named Hoshea by Moses. So before we get to the portion, let somebody who's willing to read Numbers 13:16. Wait a minute. I guess I got to read it. You got to read it too. Let's open up our Bibles. If you got to stop the recording, get yourself one or two translations. Let's open to Numbers 13:16. I love this verse. In fact, in my book, His Hallowed Name Revealed Again, I do an entire section in the back of the book called What About the Name Jesus? And it's so funny. More and more people tell me that when they open my book, they go to that chapter first before they read the rest, which to me is kind of funny. But anyway, Numbers 13:16, I addressed this. It's really interesting. It says, these are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. But Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. Or in Hebrew, what it would say is that Moses called Hoshea Yehoshua, which means, it doesn't say this in the Bible, but this is what it means according to Hebrew, Yehovah, that's the first part of the name, and Shua, saves, so Yehoshua. It's really powerful. Now, here is Yehoshua having a meeting with Yehovah, and Moses, his mentor, is dead. And it almost seems that Yehovah wants, like Yehoshua, to understand the simple but important fact even more clearly. So before we get to those verses, let's do this. Let me look here. Let's talk a little bit just for a second. Even though we talk about this in the original Torah pearls, the section in Numbers 20 where Moses actually does something that disqualifies him from being able to go into the land. So let's take a look at that before we get this, because again, what I love about BFA, inspiring people around the world to build a biblical foundation for their faith, that includes language, history, and context. And you really can't read this section without a little context. So open your Bibles to Numbers chapter 20, verse 8. And here's what it says. Take the rod, this is Yehovah speaking to Moses, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock. This is important for you to remember. And speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. Situation is the people are grumbling, they need water. So Yehovah says, speak to the rock. You shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink. 20 verse 9. So Moses took the rod from before Yehovah, just as he had commanded him. 20:10, and Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock, and he said to them, now here's where the shift comes. Listen now, you rebels, shall we now bring forth for you out of the rock? I like when I can kind of change my voice when I'm reading and stuff, like based on how it sounds. 20 verse 11. Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. Then here comes the big statement. 20 verse 12. But Yehovah said unto Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed me, to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. Man, I mean, it's still hard for me when I read this. Literally, it's like Moses was going to be left behind because of his anger, I guess, or the lack of faith and his irreverence that he displayed before the people. Before his time, by the way. This was before his time. Listen to this. Deuteronomy, let's see here. Hold on. I've got to tap. And then I've got to read. Okay, here you go. Deuteronomy 34:1. Now Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And Yehovah showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, and all of Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, and the Negev, and the plain, and the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zoar. Then Yehovah said unto him, this is the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not go there. So Moses, the servant of Yehovah, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of Yehovah, and he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no man knows his burial place to this day. And then here comes the final verse on this. Although Moses was 120 years old when he died, his eye was not dim, nor his vigor abated. Which means Moses could still get around. Moses, he might have been 120, but it says his eye wasn't dim. This guy he was strong. He was ready to do what he needed to do. In fact, he begged Yehovah to be able to change his mind to let him go. And there's a verse, and maybe you guys can find it and put it in the comments, where he says to Yehovah, now could you reconsider? And Yehovah says, don't ask me about this anymore. It's over. It's done. It's done. I'm going to let you see it, but you can't go. And you got to wonder if maybe this whole thing, and I mean, listen, I'm just telling you, you've got to read it for yourself and come up with your own conclusions based on reading Scripture. But when I get to this issue of Joshua chapter 1, verse 18, it's like he was prepared by Moses to be able to do this. He's carrying the name that says that Yehovah himself saves. So regardless of why it happened, it was in God's perfect plan that there would come a dispensation when Moses would need to die and Yahushua would need to live and to go forward, as we find in this wonderful and powerful passage. So now here's the last prophet portion. And like I said, I thought that we would record it, but, the best laid plans of men. By the way, I really need to thank our Prophet Pearl sponsors for this episode, who call themselves the two servants of the Most High Elyon. These guys have been true partners in this endeavor. I don't know how many of these they sponsored, maybe 5 or 6 of them. Thanks, my friends. We really appreciate this. We could not have done it with you. And actually, I want to say at this point, thank you to all who sponsored one or more of these episodes. When we ventured out on this thing, we didn't know how it was going to work. People stepped up to the plate so that we could get it done, editing and all the things that went around it. We had to travel. Oh boy, it's amazing. So I want to say thank you to all of you. But I'm committed to completing what I said I would do. So let's get to finding some pearls in this powerful passage from Joshua 1:8 through 18. Now, what I need to do now is we're going to take a look at this verse, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. Now, it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of Yehovah, that Yehovah spoke to Joshua and said to him, to the son of Nun, Moses, my servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise and go forth. Let's see here. Yeah, it says, therefore, arise and go forth. And I'm actually reading 2 different things at one. Yeah, across the Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I'm going to give to them, to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your feet tread, I have given it to you, as I spoke to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land and the Hittites, as far as the great sea, toward the setting of the sun will be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life, just as, and I love this sentence, just as I have been with Moses, I shall be with you. I will not fail you, nor forsake you. That is I don't know. I mean, when I read that, I just, there's something about that just gives me a sense of what it would have been like to hear from the creator of the universe. I will be with you. And so here you've got this declaration to Joshua saying, here's the land you're about to possess. And the Father goes even farther by giving the boundaries of the land. Tells him how far to the north, how far to the south, and the east and the west. And then he says this one little thing, which I, think is kind of interesting. It says it's going to be the land of the Hittites. Now, we also know the Girgashites were there, and the Jebusites and the Canaanites and everybody else. But he uses the word the Hittites, which I kind of find interesting, which I guess I'll try to address a little bit later. But basically, the situation is he's giving Joshua a clear sense of what the mission is. And I'm sure it had to be overwhelming, which I think part of me makes me say that's why he put the reality to Joshua early. Joshua, I know you've been here from the beginning and you've seen everything that has been done through Moses, and you've watched from the beginning, and you've seen the amazing moves of what I've done, and you've watched the miracles, and you've seen the water split in the battles. But now, Joshua, Moses is dead. I mean, he's gone. It's over. It's done. And it's time now for you to do something pretty darn powerful. But he tells him something which I think is interesting, and I'm actually going to make this the prophet, what I call the pearl of the section. We did something really interesting throughout our recording. Early in the recording, Nehemiah was recording the entire section in Hebrew, and that we actually weren't able to continue that. But what that did for those that knew a little bit of Hebrew, sometimes hearing the Hebrew, you hear something, not just reading it, but like physically hearing it. So for me, what I like to do is I like to take a look at a passage. I like to look at the Hebrew. I like to look at the English, one or two versions, and kind of compare and contrast. And that's sort of what we did in preparation for Prophet Pearls and Torah Pearls. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. When I got excited yesterday, I really was not intending to be able to record this last section just because circumstances being what they were, I just didn't know how it was going to work. And as I mentioned, when this opportunity came on Sukkot, which happened to be, and don't you dare put the birthday song, my birthday, two things happened at one time. I got a little excited. And so rather than normally jump into the depth of this, what I'm doing is I'm going to jump into it with you. 1 verse 6 is really, really interesting. And the reason it is interesting to me is that when I see 1 verse 6, I see something that I guess, for lack of a better term, it jumps off the page at me. In 1 verse 6, and I'm opening here, I'm going to tap 1 verse 6, and I'm going to put up the English and the Hebrew. Okay, yes. The first two words of Joshua chapter 1 verse 6 literally jumped off the page. And they jump off the page now. And I'd like to do just something real quick with you. 1 verse 6, it says this, Hazak va'ematz. And when I see those two words, I'm like, wow. I mean, maybe it's not a big deal for anyone else, but for me, I was like, wow, I've seen those words before. I know I've seen those words before. And when I've seen those words, they've been in a different context. And I put that different context now in the context of Yehoshua sitting there, hearing from Yehovah what he's about to do. He says this. Well, let me do it this way. Let's take a look at the first word, Hazak. And it says, I have seen this. Well, for me, when I'm saying he's telling him Hazak. And so like I said, I've seen this word many times in Scripture. But the one that catches my attention is, let's see here. Okay, real quick. Let's go. I think it is. Yes, in Exodus, in the book of Exodus, this word is actually used 25 times. The majority of those times, based on a quick take a look here, are referring to when the heart of Pharaoh was this word, hazak. Yehovah says he will hazak the heart of Pharaoh. Now, in English, we say he will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and that certainly is one possibility. But what's interesting is when I am looking at this, I'm thinking of the word that I've read earlier and that I've studied earlier, and then I'm bringing it forward to Joshua, and it sort of gives me like what I like to call a little bit of a different dimension to how important this word is. If we take a closer look, it really means, yes, it was chazak, it was hardened in English, but really what that means is his heart was strengthened. Literally, Yehovah strengthened Pharaoh's heart. Put him in a place where is regardless of what he might have seen, the circumstances that would have caused him to back away and say, okay, you guys get out of here. Yehovah stepped in and said, no, I'm not done yet. I've got to do some things. So I'm going to strengthen your heart so you can go through it. So here we've got Joshua is being told with an imperative command. In other words, Yehovah is commanding Joshua. He's not saying, it'd be a good idea as you prepare to do this next thing, to find some good podcasts to listen to and maybe some good motivational speakers to encourage you to be prepared for what. No, he tells him this. Chazak, in the imperative, be hardened, if we want to use the English way it's used in Exodus. No, be strengthened. Get it right. Get ready. No time for being a softy now that Moses is dead. No complaining, protesting, asking for me to bring him back. It's done over. It's your turn, Joshua, to do what I'm calling you to do. So get over it. Strengthen yourself so I can accomplish through you what I promised. And he doesn't just end there with that one word. There's another word that he uses right after it. And let's do something real quick. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. So he says, chazak v'ematz. Now, when I see that word, I'm also reminded of something pretty interesting. Let's take a look. Let's see here. Really quick. What would be the first time? One of the things I like to do is I like to go and find the first time a word is used sometimes. And when I see that first time, it doesn't happen all the time. But in this case, it's kind of interesting because it's Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 30. And it says, but Sihon, king of Heshbon, was not willing for us to pass through his land. For Yehovah, your God, hardened his spirit and made his heart, and here it comes, the same word. But in English it says, it made his heart obstinate in order to deliver him into your hand. Now, here's what I'd like to encourage you guys to do. I'm not going to do this for you. In fact, I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit, my new approach going into this land for you as we do open scripture together. I really want you to go and find the times that same word is used. And you know, those of you that have concordances is really a good way to do this. Don't worry so much about trying to get the full meaning of the word, but just where it's used and how many times you can actually go through and see where this word is used. And this is an example where, in this case, in Deuteronomy 2:30, the word is used to make a heart obstinate. So if we were to take that same thing, Yehovah is telling to Joshua, be strong and be obstinate, if we use the English terms. But when we see it in Hebrew, it kind of gives us a little bit of a different flair. And that's, again, where I think it's pretty interesting. And seeing these two words together is what I really want to get to. So what we're going to do real quick, let's see how many times. Yes, we find these two words together, chazak. Let's see here. Hold on. Let me just look here. And it's really kind of interesting. It's funny how we were able to do this because, you know, when Nehemiah and I were doing this together, I could have my Bibles open. The guy is amazing when it comes to the computer. I mean, he's tap, 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 and the stuff comes up. But, you know, it's going to be a little bit tougher here. But what's really amazing about it is to be able to begin to look at Scripture and find where these words are used and how they're used. And again, it was a lot easier when both of us were kind of going back and forth. But in this situation, partly what I want to encourage you to do is that when this is over, you can even stop it right now. Go to Joshua chapter 1, verse 6. You're going to see these two words together. And one of the things that you could do, which this is what I actually like to do, is I like to look at the words and say, okay, is there examples where we can find these two words together? Now, they may not be in the exact same form. They may be in a different grammatical form, but is there something that's being communicated? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look. Okay, here we go. First time we see this is in Deuteronomy 31:6. Now, again, the form is different of these two words. We're not going to get into the detail of that. But what it says in English, if I look at my NAS, it says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, or do not tremble at them, for Yehovah your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Interesting, Moses is speaking to the people before Moses has to hit the road, and he's not going to go with them. So he's letting them know now, here's what you've got to do. Then in Deuteronomy 31:7, Moses calls to Yehoshua, Joshua, and says to him in the sight of all of Israel. What does he say to them in the sight of all Israel? In 31 verse 7, it says here, 31 verse 7, he called unto them, and there it is. Chazak va'ematz. The same exact words that Yehovah tells Joshua in Joshua 1 verse 6. Again, in Deuteronomy 31:23, the exact two words are used again. You can find this in any good concordance. Then he commissioned Joshua the son of Nun and said to him, this is Moses now, be strong and courageous, sir. If we were to take the English version, how it's used sometimes, be hardened and obstinate. be strong and courageous. Be a person who can really, how we might say it, what would be the best way that we could do this? Well, it's another way of saying strength, courage. Be strong and strong. Be courageous and courageous. Be hardened and strong. I mean, it's like these two words together really do something powerful. Deuteronomy 31:23. If we go to Joshua 1:6, that's where we see it. But what's really interesting to me, folks, is that we don't only see it there. Here's what I think is really, really interesting. If we read Joshua 1:6, 1:7, and one time, Yehovah becomes a good old-fashioned preacher. Let's do that. 1:6. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. 1:7. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all of the Torah. That's what it says as Torah, not law. Moses, my servant, commanded you, do not turn to it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. And then verse 8, it does something again, but I want to go to verse 9. I'm going to go back to verse 8. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for Yehovah your God is with you wherever you go. So it's literally as if Yehovah is standing before Joshua and he's saying, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Now, if you don't remember anything else I said, remember these two Hebrew words. Well, of course, he didn't say Hebrew words because he was speaking to him in Hebrew. There was no English back then. He gives them these two words, Joshua 1:6, Joshua 1:7, and Joshua 1:9. 3 times Yehovah gives Yehoshua the 3-point sermon. But Joshua's probably like a lot of us, needing to hear what is important more than once. So he heard it from his mentor Moses in Deuteronomy, as I said earlier. But now Moses is dead. He's gone. He's nowhere around. He may have learned it earlier in the Torah portions and what he heard there, but now he's about to go into a completely different land. So Yehovah comes to him and says, Moses is dead. Now, do you remember what he said to you, Joshua? Let me say it to you 3 times. These 2 words just jump off the page in this portion. But let's keep reading. I want to get to Joshua 1:8. Someone read Joshua 1:8. Keith, maybe you should read it. Okay, I'll read it. Well, maybe you should read it. No, I don't want to read it. You read it. Okay, I'll read it. 1 verse 8. This book of the in English law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. I absolutely, positively would say this really is one of my favorite verses and has been for many, many, many years. When I see 1:8, and I got to be honest with you, it says, let me just go here to the verse if I can. Okay, here we go. Okay. The words book of the law is what we see in English, but in the Hebrew what we see is Sefer HaTorah. The Sefer HaTorah, the book of the Torah. And I got to tell you, I put a picture up that kind of represents how I came to this, being willing to do this recording, waiting to do this recording. And I've got this amazing thing. I've told this story many, many times. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I really wanted to have the ability to have a Torah scroll. And so through much revelation and intervention and circumstances that deserve their own, its own time, I was able to obtain a Torah scroll. And what I tend to do on these high holy days, these days that we're in right now during Sukkot and other times during the year when something comes, I tend to want to bring out that Torah scroll and unroll it and read it. And I'm at a place now where I actually, through His grace and just, man, oh man, the opportunity to learn to read my Torah scroll, to be able to read it and look at sections of it, and it's like a holy experience. But what he tells Joshua here is there is a Sefer HaTorah, like a book of the Torah. So at this point, obviously, Moses had completed his work. Why? Moses is dead. He's gone. He's written his part, and now it exists. It's there. We find examples of what was to be done with this book of the Torah, etc. But he tells them, don't let this book of the Torah, do not let it depart. And from where? From your mouth. But you shall, and it uses a really interesting word in English. It says, but you shall meditate on it day and night. This word could mean to like moan, to speak, to meditate. I get this image, you all, of him saying, now look, sometimes you just need to speak this word to yourself quiet before you're falling asleep. Sometimes you need to be thinking about this word when you're looking at the Hittites and the Girgashites. Sometimes you need to speak it to the people. You've got to meditate on this word. You've got to let this be a part of you. And be honest with you, when I see this this word and speaking about it being something to meditate, and we use it right now in English, to meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it, for then you will make your way prosperous, and you will have great success. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, that's really what I've done over the years. Is I had this memorization plan, and all of it really came from this verse. The idea of meditating on the word day and night. I mean, that's where you're able to think about it as you're driving and as you're sitting in the house and going along the road. Almost seems like something like a command in Deuteronomy, how you should teach your children to meditate on this word. But that's literally what he tells Joshua. Look, you're about to do something amazing. You're about to do something really big. You're going to need to be able to have some help. And that help is, I'm going to be with you always. But remember this. Meditate on that which you've received that's in that book day and night, and that you would be prosperous and successful in all that you do. So I have to say, let's do this. Let's go ahead and read this. I want to read just a little bit at a time. We get through 8, we get through 9, and then we get to 10. Then, and this is really the only time we hear from Joshua. In the beginning, Joshua's just sitting like a good student listening. He's heard from Moses. He's heard from Yehovah. And now he goes and he tells the people, Joshua, and you know what's interesting? When I get to verse 10, I'm thinking, well, Joshua could have took a different approach. Like I said, he could have said to Yehovah, no, look, I'm not ready. He could have done the Moses thing where he says, can you send someone else? Joshua, man, it's like when he was renamed that Yehovah will save. It's like he just becomes this person. It's like, look, I'm just going to do my part, but in the end, he's going to have to do it through me. So it says, then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourself, for within 3 days you are to cross, and in verse 10 here, the Jordan, to go and possess the land which Yehovah your God is giving you to possess it. And to the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word which Moses, the servant of Yehovah, commanded you, saying, Yehovah your God gives you rest when he does it, and it will give you this land. Your wives and your little ones and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But you shall cross before your brothers in battle array, all of your valiant warriors, and shall help them. And Yehovah, until Yehovah gives your brothers rest as he gives you, and they also possess the land which Yehovah your God is giving them. Then you shall return to your own land and possess that which Moses, the servant of Yehovah, gave you beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise. And I have to tell you, when I read that, and I'm going to venture out just a little bit here. I can do what I want, right? I mean, it's just me. When I read that verse, I kind of think about America. Let me tell you why I think about America. I think about, so here you've got this, part of Israel, and this is touchy stuff. So don't go too far, you guys. Don't say it, Keith said, whatever. I'm just giving you an image. So you got part of the group who says, okay, we're not going to go over where the Hittites, Girgashites, Jebusites are, blah, blah, blah. We're going to, and he says, okay, you're not going to go, but what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead of them and you're going to fight on their behalf. You've got your place of rest. Now go and fight with them. And I think there's something about that image that really kind of, and when I speak of America, I'm specifically talking about this. The United States and Israel are supposed to be allies. They're supposed to be friends. We've got this long history, and we see this crumbling in some ways, which really concerns me. But if we were to apply sort of this passage, it would kind of be like, okay, America, you're sitting over here in your place of rest. Go help your brothers and your sisters that are battling over in that part of the land. You've been given your area, now help them in their area. And what I kind of sense right now, and I'm sensing this more and more, and it really has been concerning me, more and more people who are like, well, that's over there. We don't have to worry about what's over there. Though they open their Bibles and they say, we're people of the book, and this is the book. Well, let me tell you what's happening over there in many ways is connected to what we read today. And one of the things that I've noticed, it just seems that fewer and fewer people are willing to enter the fight. That really is, it's a difficult fight when you start talking about this prophetic thing happening where people from around the nations are coming back into the land. We're watching prophecy take place, and I don't need to go over that. We've gone over it a lot. But when I read these verses, I'm kind of convicted a little bit about, so what part can we play? So maybe I'm here and I don't have, the Qassam missiles that are landing in Charlotte, and I don't have, certain people that are right around my neighborhood saying, hey, I want to take you out, that you don't exist. And yet I think about Israel and how it's in its fight and how it's in its battle. And I think, so what can I do? Where are places that I can enter in to be supportive and helpful? So that really is for me, something I do. And again, part of that is because of one verse 8 that mentions, it says, if you're going to be successful, you've got to have this Torah, this word in your heart, and it's hard to read that and not be able to connect with what's happening, both in Israel and really around the world. And so anyway, let me kind of move on from that. In fact, let me just say this, this portion, it really encourages me. It's inspired me as I look at the challenges that are staring me presently today in my face. I'm being called to enter into some places of promise where there are huge obstacles waiting to make my journey difficult. I call them the ites, the Hittites who love to hit you. They're cousins, to the fearites, the struggleites, the politicalites, the if-ites, the chaos, conflict, and trouble-ites that are always waiting to pounce as soon as you cross over into new territory. But remember, there are two words that we looked at today. These two words just really, I honestly would like to encourage people to take these two words and begin to meditate on them, to mumble on them, to muse over them, to remember these two words and teach them to your children, tell them to your spouse, say them to yourself in the language they were given to Yehoshua, Joshua. These two words. I mean, can we just real quick, I want to do something. Let's do this again. One verse, let's see, here we go. Let's see here. Here they are, 1, 4, 5, and 6. Wait, okay. Wait, hold on, there it is. Okay. It says, in English, be strong and courageous. In the language it was given, it says, chazak ve'ematz. Chazak ve'ematz. It's like, wow. These two words were spoken from Moses, the mentor, who's now dead. Those words were taken and given to Joshua himself from Yehovah. And it's really interesting. Not only did Joshua hear these from Moses and from Yehovah, if we go just a little bit further, let's do something. I like this. Let me see real quick. Okay. It says, verse 16. It says, verse 17. Here we go. Joshua tells the people what they have to do. And they say, they answered Joshua saying, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may Yehovah your God be with you, as he was with Moses. Verse 18. This is the end of the portion, actually. Anyone who rebels against your command and does not obey your words and all that you commanded him shall be put to death, except there's just one little thing, Joshua. Chazak ve'ematz. They tell Joshua what Moses told Joshua, what Yehovah told Joshua. And now the people say, look, now on one condition. I would go so far as to say this is the portion. These two words are the portion. These two words set the stage for something that present day Israel is dealing with and future Israel will deal with. There is a constant challenge to live by the promise. Sometimes circumstances get in the way of the promise, but they don't stop the promise. It's just that sometimes it's difficult. And when we see those difficult times, these two words can be huge. To hear them. Chazak ve'ematz. Be strong and courageous. Be hardened and obstinate. Be tough. Stand up. Don't back down. Continue to be who Yehovah called you to be. I'm really trying to decide as it pertains to these audio series. It's been so amazing to have recorded them and to do them. And there's so many different things that I could focus on in going forward. But before I do anything else, I've got some challenges that I'm really facing. As I mentioned, I will physically have traveled around the world over the next few weeks. I'll be in some places that that are difficult. I'm going to be in some places where there's some ites. In fact, I'm going to be doing some things which you'll hear about where I'm going to need your prayer. I'm going to need you to remind me of these 2 words. I want you to send me a note and say, Keith, remember, and tell me these 2 words, because I'm going to be in some touchy situations. You can really be in prayer. I'll mention them to you as they happen. But as they happen, I really need some people to come along. And again, did Joshua need to be reminded? Do I need to be reminded? Do you need to be reminded that as we face these situations that we're facing, and I'm telling you, the world's not getting any easier, we've got to remember these 2 words. You know, while the pre-recorded Prophet Pearls have been going out each week, I've been quite busy preaching and teaching around the world while also writing and recording this new biblical Hebrew audio course that has passed the pilot phase and is ready for you. 2 levels have been uploaded for your review with over 20 engaging lessons. The 3rd level is in production, and by the time we get to Thanksgiving, hopefully, all 3 levels will be uploaded and ready for you to learn to find your own pearls in the deep waters of the Hebrew Scriptures. Over the last 2 weeks, I shared this new biblical Hebrew audio course at a national pastors conference. Last week, I was in Colorado sharing it with some sharing it with some special folks there. This weekend, I'm actually on my way to Canada. I'm going to be entering into Sukkot celebration up in Canada, so I'll be sharing the word there and actually sharing a lot about this Hebrew course that really is a blessing. So I'm asking you to get on board with us if you'd like. Start the process of interacting with the information, inspiration, and revelation that I say jumps off the pages of the Hebrew Scriptures and will sometimes slap you straight in the face, literally. So here's what I want to do. In closing, I really want to challenge you to look at Joshua chapter 1 through 18. And I really would love for you to look at with those 2 words as the backdrop. What does it mean for you? What are you facing right now? Where are your challenges, both in relationships and circumstances and finances and job? Just as far as what's happening with the world. I mean, there's got to be some of you that are probably just confused if you've heard all these things that have been going around and what's happening at the UN and what's happening in Israel and what's happening in Syria and what's happening with Russia and what's happening in the United States. Let me tell you what I really hope you're concerned about is what's happening in the Word. Because the Word gives us perspective in the midst of chaos. When we're looking at the ites, boy, oh boy, meditate, muse, think about it, remember it, speak it, proclaim it, look in the mirror and tell yourself, I will meditate on this word day and night. So here's what I want to do. Even though things don't go the way you may have expected, the call is still waiting for your response. Be like Joshua. Get back to work. Even if it means sometimes, and they say sometimes, if you got to do it alone. As for me, I'm ready to cross over to inherit whatever Yehovah has for me. In the next few weeks, I will have traveled around the world, literally, with the hopes of being back in Charlotte by Thanksgiving. Stay connected with me by signing up for the free newsletter at bfainternational.com, or better yet, some of you that are really serious, register for our premium content library. Take the plunge with folks around the world who are learning biblical Hebrew and diving for those precious pearls in Scripture. Did I mention that we have over now 50 high-quality presentations that are in the premium content library, and we have people that are around the world taking advantage of it. So I'd invite you to check it out. In fact, I think they still have a 7-day free deal. You just look at it. But I will be honest, being a part of the premium content library gives us one little extra piece as we prepare for the many things that are waiting. We've got so many things that are still undeveloped, unproduced. There's been a lot of people that have joined in with us to help us do that. You can look at our donate page at bfainternational.com. And if you think that this is something that should continue, or maybe some more audio series, maybe we should have what I call the Biblical Brick audio series, where I can just take a passage and we can do it together. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that between now and Thanksgiving, I'm really going to be facing some tough situations, some circumstances that are, to be quite honest, are concerning. But these 2 words really have encouraged me. So thanks for listening, and be sure to comment if you find something we all need to see. Until next time. Wait a minute. There is no next time. The Torah pearls and prophet pearls are over. This dispensation is over. What happens next will be new. So until then, that's all, folks.
Thank you for listening to Prophet Pearls with Keith Johnson. For more information, please visit bfainternational.com.